Hey everybody, we want to welcome you to this next episode of A New View with me and my friend Kelly. And we love that you get to join us as we talk to people that we find fascinating.
This is so much fun.
And talk about all kinds of different stuff.
Yes.
But today I get the pleasure to introduce someone that I love a lot, have a great deal of respect for, as he's over here laughing that I'm saying that. But today we have our guest is Bob Saenz. And Bob is a screenwriter, among other things. And he has done so many amazing things. Like how many films? He's got 19?
19? Is that right?
21.
21. Oh.
See, I thought that number was wrong when I saw
We got to get caught up.
21 produced movies, not just scripts. How many scripts do you think you've written?
About a 3-foot tall stack.
Very nice.
But Bob has, it's one of those things, people are behind the scenes and they don't really understand who makes things go. So
the writers don't make things go. we can disabuse you of that right now.
But anyway, Bob authored this book called That's Not the Way It Works, which I think is just hilarious because in his industry, everybody thinks it's going to go one way, and he's been able to do that.
Yeah.
Also has a second book, too, that, oh my goodness, what's the name? The Vampire Diary. Jessica's Vampire Diary.
Yes.
And wonderful book with some really interesting principles in it. But we're just glad to have you, Bob. I mean, thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Kelly didn't want to have you, but I said no.
He made me do it. No. So an actor, a screenwriter, a disc jockey, a rock band. What else? What else have you done? Is there anything you haven't done?
There's lots I haven't done. I have a bucket list that I put together when I was like 13 years old. And
what number are we on?
You guys are on it. No.
Yes.
I'm going to run back home and put it on.
Right.
I still have it, and I've added a few things in the last few years, but I decided that there were things I wanted to do in my life, and those things now have gone on to form a basis of life experience that may have made me a much better writer. I always fear for these writers who want to do this so badly, and yet they go and sit in their basement and write, and they think that they're going to write, and they need to get out and live a life.
Yeah.
They need to get out and this life is so short, and our time here is just a snap, and you need to get out and do things. So I on the list were things like playing golf in Scotland and climbing a mountain. I climbed Mount Rainier. We ice climbed Mount Rainier. I've whitewater rafted the entire Colorado River, and that I wanted to do something like that. I wanted to. There's all kinds of things that are on there that I've been able to accomplish. I wanted to be in a Broadway play. I haven't done that yet, but I've seen some, and that was on there. And I wanted to be on TV, and I've done that. I'm doing it now. I wanted to. There's all kinds of things that were on there that have given me a basis of experience that have made me a much better writer, made me understand the things that you kind of need to do to write realistically, to base all the junk you get to make up when you write needs to be based in a level of reality.
Right. So screenwriting, was it your very first love though? Acting?
No, I wanted to be an actor, but I'm not very good.
Whatever. So you were good because you landed a part on Nash Bridges.
Yes, I did. I was on a TV series for 6 years. Nash Bridges, I had a part that big for 6 years. Don Johnson kept me around, which I'm eternally grateful because it was like going to film school every week when we made a 1-hour movie every like 8 days. Wow. That we were working, and it was I went to him I think the second year, and I said, I want to learn about how everything works. I want to learn about why the guys light the way they do and why the sound guys do what they do and why the camera guys do what they do, and about lenses and about lighting and about everything. And he went, "You have my permission because that's how I did it."
Wow. Yeah.
And so I went back on set every time, even if I wasn't working. I was there working, but even if I wasn't in a scene, and I would just be there and see how everything works. And I got to wear the Steadicam, which it weighs about 90 pounds.
Yes, it does.
And would
Yes.
kill me if I tried to do it today. And I got to see why they used gold reflections versus other reflections, silver reflections, or how they did what they did as far as getting all these effects just by lighting. I saw the low-tech special effects, which is coffee cans with holes in them for dripping from rain, to high-tech special effects. It's been a really interesting experience in my life.
Well, I've heard that you have been killed and resurrected. I mean, how many people
That's
can
pretty
say
impressive.
that?
I've been killed
Very specifically, some creative ways.
I've been killed a lot of ways, and
Specifically in Jurassic Park.
Jurassic
what
Park
happened to
2.
you there?
Jurassic Park 2. There's a scene where I'm running through the jungle and I fall down and a T-Rex steps on me and I stick to the bottom of its foot.
How did the rest of your day
We
go?
did that. We did that
That'd
at.
be so much fun.
It was the most fun over 2 days I think I've
Oh, I
ever spent.
bet. I bet.
And it was great fun because it was at Industrial Light and Magic in San Rafael, California, and we ran around on these big giant sound stages, and it was directed by Steven Spielberg, and I never met him. He was never there. It was all the special effects guys. So I got to meet Dennis Muren, who has 23 Academy Awards, and I got to meet the late, great, spectacular Stan Winston, who built all those dinosaurs and did all this thing. So if
That's cool.
I'm crushed by the dinosaur, and then Stan Winston says, "Hey, do you want to see what it looks like?" Because they had everything set up on the computer screen for me to see. And it was really, really fun, and it was like, my wife says she got to go to work and I got to go play.
Yeah.
But I've led a Forrest Gumpy kind of life, and I thank God for every minute of it, because every step of it has had his finger on it, and I really appreciate it. It's been an amazing journey. Just all the people I've met and all the experiences I've gotten to have, that just some of them just out of the blue, that have been just unbelievable.
So when you were 18 years old, did you know in your heart that you were going to do many different things?
No, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was an idiot. I was just an 18-year-old kid who got out of high school after I had pretty much cut my entire senior year, and somehow
Really?
graduated. Oh yeah, I was bored out of my mind.
Were you looking for acting projects?
No,
or-
I was just bored. At
Just-
school, I was bored. I wanted to act. I did a lot of stage work. I did a lot of amateur and professional theater from the time I was like 16. But I was school bored.
Just
That's no
ready
other way to
move
put
on.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
And-
developed a love for screenwriting. How did that start? You're on.
I developed an aptitude for screenwriting,
Okay.
and I really enjoy it. I don't know if the word love would be there. I like a lot what I do. It's fun, and I've always wanted to be involved in making movies and TV and stuff. So if I couldn't be an actor, and I couldn't be because I had a range of about like this, get me in there, I'm great, but I am not Meryl Streep.
Thank you, Jesus.
I looked at the scripts on Nash Bridges and I thought, I can do this. And I went home and I wrote one, and I came back and I said to one of the producers, "Hey, I wrote an episode," and he laughed and said, "Everyone on the set has written an episode. The guy who waters the plants, that guy over there who keeps all the plants green, he's got a script."
Aren't you glad you heard that after the fact, though? I mean,
I don't
did
know
he
if it
say
would have
this
stopped
before?
me. I don't know if it would have stopped me from
Okay.
writing it, but he said, and he said, what's it about? And I told him, and he goes, wow, that's really kind of cool. Okay, I may read that one. So he read it, and about 3 months later, he came back and said, we're not going to take this, but it's really good, and you should keep writing. And so
So you kept going.
Yes, I kept going.
You wrote another script. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Polygram picks
I wrote a
this up.
script called The Vampire State Building,
Okay.
which is the basis for my book. I wrote a
Okay.
script called The Vampire State Building, and it was written as a kid kind of adventure movie, and it came from my son hearing the words Empire State Building on the radio and coming to me and saying, what's the Vampire State Building? And I laughed and thought, that's a great title for a movie. So I wrote this movie, and God, 99.99999% of the time, first scripts by writers are horrible.
Yeah.
And they're horrible because people don't understand the craft. I guess, God just gave me an ability to do it because right out of the gate somebody took it. And it was what only can be described as a complete and total God miracle that it got picked up off somebody's desk who had wanted to read it. And
Out of how many? How many do you think sit? How many get sent in at one time, do you think? I mean, what are the odds?
you can't send a script in.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not the way it works.
But how many are they choosing from? That's not how it works. The odds of being picked
the
up
odds
by
of being
this.
picked up
by-
are astronomically
Right.
small. Every year, about 80,000 scripts are registered with the copyright department.
Wow.
Okay, 98% of them are horrible. I mean, just unreadable. Okay,
And how many had you written up until this point?
none.
This was your first one.
Movie, yeah. And it got picked up off a desk of a casting person that I knew. I did a commercial for McDonald's or something that I got cast in. And we were talking, she and I were talking, and I said, oh yeah, I wrote a script. And she said, I'll read it. So I brought it to her and put it on her desk, and a executive that she was having, that she knew well, I don't know how to explain it without, that was visiting her a lot from LA, came up, and she was busy, and he picked it up off her desk and read it, just curious, and he called me and he said, I read the script and I'm giving it to Tina Sinatra and Norman Lear at Warner Brothers because this is exactly what they're looking for.
And what's going through your mind at that time?
I went, okay. I mean, what do you,
What do you do?
I mean, do
I
you
assume
do
this
you
is the
even
way it
understand?
always happened.
Right.
I mean, how do you know? And so the Tina Sinatra called me and she said, listen, because of her, I got to meet Frank Sinatra
That's cool.
one time, who called me kid, which was
Perfect.
one of the greatest moments, that you can have. But we digress. So it ended up going to Polygram Pictures, and it was going to get made until Polygram got bought by Universal for their music catalog.
Yep.
And you guys understand the music business.
yes,
That's what they wanted. They
absolutely.
wanted that MCA.
Yep.
They wanted that Polygram music catalog because it also included, I think, the Beatles.
Right.
And they said to Polygram, you can dump your entire movie slate. We're not going to take it. So all of a sudden, everything that was there was gone.
So what period of time did
Over
all this
about
happen?
an 18-month period.
Wow.
And it was gone. And it was gone. I mean, people stopped returning my phone calls in LA.
Wow. So
It
what do
was-
you do?
it was
'Cause,
over.
I mean, you had to feel like I'm actually making it. I'm doing this. I'm
I was
doing
right
this.
there.
No.
You're right there.
And then it's gone.
It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
It couldn't have felt that way in the beginning, though.
Now I realize that God had a plan.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the best thing that could happen to me because out of the gate, my ego went nuts because all of a sudden, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be making millions of dollars as a writer. This is incredible. I'm wonderful and walking down the red carpet and all this stuff. And God said, "No, not so fast," and it went away. But I found out that tons of screenwriters have had the same experience.
Really?
Oh yeah, no, you can
sense, though.
you can have a movie that's moving forward at a production company, and that person who was the champion of your movie is now moved to another company, and somebody comes in and replaces them and says, "This isn't, I'm not going to do any of his movies because I didn't think of it. It's an ego thing too, and this wasn't my deal. So bye bye."
Okay, so how long from that moment of disappointment to the next produced film?
My first produced film, 12 years.
Okay, tell me about that 12 years.
It was a long time.
Yeah. What did you
I was
learn
working
in
on the
those 12 years?
show. I was doing some movies. I was on the radio, 97.7 KFRC, San Francisco. I did country music, 93.3 Young Country.
Perfect. Perfect.
KYCY in San Francisco, a station that no longer exists. I guess, and I was narrating. I was doing like documentary films that were on the Learning Channel before it became a hotbed of junk. And so I was doing that. I was doing voices for video games. You can hear my voice on a ton of video games. My son always made my son really, really, really happy to kill off some character that I was playing in a video game.
Oh, that's fun.
And so I was doing all that stuff, and I was keeping writing, and I was getting, it was a lot of close but no cigar times with different things. And I wrote a script called, we can talk about it because it's one of those ones that I may not, knowing who I am now and my relationship with God, that I may not have written. I'm glad I did, because it was a gift. But I wrote a script called Extracurricular Activities, which came from my anger at the whole idea of it takes a village to raise a child. I had 3 kids, and I know I didn't want the community raising my kids.
Yeah.
I wanted my wife and I to raise our kids. So I wrote a script where parents were kind of obsolete, and it's called Extracurricular Activity. It ended up being an R-rated, very dark comedy thriller. It is very funny. It got made 18 years after I wrote it.
Wow.
It made some top 10 best films of the year on some lists for 2019. It did pretty well in the theaters. It's done incredibly well on streaming, and it's now kind of a cult film. I don't talk about it a lot to a lot of the people that know me now because it would shock them. But I also didn't write a lot of the really bad language in it. The actors decided they wanted to ad-lib some of that. And
So when you first wrote that, that was just kind of a personal thing. Did you ever see it becoming?
No, I wrote it for
film?
another reason. A producer on Nash Bridges had said to me, "You need a calling card script." And I said, "What's a calling card script?" He says, "It's a script that's so unique and different that it may never get made, but it shows people your craft, how you are as a writer, and what you can do." And so it ended up being optioned 8 different times by 8 different people, including one studio, Universal, which was kind of funny because they had killed one of my other movies, and they killed this one too. And they never made it. But a lot of people did because it was kind of a controversial subject matter. I mean, if you want to know what it's about, do you know what it's about?
I do. I do. Yes.
Okay, it's about a kid who is the kind of kid that wore khakis and polo shirts in high school and set all the curves, and the parents all loved him and the teachers all loved him, and the kids didn't like him so much, and he has an after-school job. He kills parents for the
Takes care
kids.
of parents.
Yeah.
Annoying parents.
At the school. He's kind of a capitalistic sociopath.
So an interesting person saw this script.
No, there's a bunch of people that saw the script, but
One in particular,
yes,
right?
one in particular.
Yes.
But through the script, about 4 or 5 times into getting it, people wanting to make it, had recommended me to a manager. The manager I still have, a man named John McGalliard, and they gave it to John, and John read it and loved it. And he said, I know somebody who's looking for new writers and different writers, so I want to send this to her. And I said, that sounds interesting. He goes, well, it could be interesting. She's looking for writers for Hallmark to write Christmas movies.
And you said, that makes perfect sense.
I said, oh yeah, this makes sense. This
Absolutely.
This is like the
Right?
anti-Hallmark movie. And so he sent it, and she read it, and she wanted to see me. And I said, I went to have a meeting with her at the production company, and she says, this is a great script. This is a great script. We will never make it in a million years.
Not on your
but
life.
Talk to me about if you think you could write a Hallmark movie. And I said, I don't know, why not? You know, then which is what you should say. You should never say, no, I can't. Well, unless you really mean it. But I thought, why not? You know. And she asked me if I watched them, and I said no. But I would be happy to watch some and see. And I don't think I did. But I took this script that they had, that they sent me, and they said, we're out of ideas of how to fix this. We bought it kind of because we liked the storyline, but no one has been able to crack it. The original writer couldn't do what we wanted, and 2 or 3 other writers we hired couldn't figure it out. And I said, well, let's read it. So I read it, and they said, think out of the box. So I gave them a couple of ideas that were radical ideas, like change the main character to an elf, and make her be undercover with this family instead of just a friend, and do a few other things that made it a lot funnier than it was. And they said, we love it, and you should write it, and I did. And it ended up being the #1 cable movie of the year that year in 2012.
Help for the Holidays?
Help for the Holidays,
Yes?
starring Summer Glau, who's never made another Hallmark movie.
Really?
And I saw an interview with her, and they said, you made a Hallmark movie. Why did you make a Hallmark movie? And she said, one reason only, the script.
Wow, that's
And
cool.
that made me feel
And she
really
had
good.
no idea who she was talking to.
So that made me feel really good.
That's very cool.
And it's a very funny, cute movie, and Hallmark doesn't show it anymore because they don't show anything that has fantasy or Santa or anything in it. If you watch their movies, it's all about real people doing real things.
So when did that evolve?
When they,
How long has that been?
who knows?
Yeah.
You know, all these places all think new people come in and they think I have to change it.
Right.
It's and sometimes things are better, but most of the times when you screw with stuff that works, you're there's gonna be problems.
It's a pretty well-oiled machine.
It was.
It's proven itself, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious too, though, because over the last 5 years or so, we've seen a dramatic shift in Hollywood movies. I can't even tell you when I saw a movie like in the theater that I was like, oh, man, that was amazing. Things have changed a lot.
There was unfortunately there was and I think it is going away now, but there was a probably 8-year span of time where we went from some really amazing films to what is this? And it's because there were people who felt like rather than entertaining people, they had to push an agenda. And
they got away from story.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They got away from story. Well, they got away from entertaining people. People watch movies. People go to see things. People watch television and films to be entertained. I mean, people watch documentaries to learn things, but they watch about subject matters they're interested in. But people also want to watch things that entertain them. You can still entertain people and have a positive or nice message within that
Right.
story. I did a movie called Farmer and the Belle that has a message in it about inner beauty being more important than outer beauty. It's about a very, very big time model who is a very famous multi-millionaire type model who is aging out. And her learning the lesson that her outer beauty isn't as important as what's within her. But
Great movie, by
within
the
that
way.
message, we didn't make that the bound it over your head type, this is what you will learn from this film. It's a very funny movie that happens to have that kind of a message woven into the story, that you can either take that message with you and say, wow, I got something out of it, or say, boy, that was a cute movie, and have walked away not worried about, not getting that message, but not having it resonate with you for the rest of your life.
Right.
And that's fine. But the whole idea behind having something that people want to see is, I want to have a time at the movie where there are people who love horror films. They want to be scared. They don't have a message with it. They just want to be scared. They want to watch superhero movies to see the superheroes win and see all the things happen. They want to watch whatever they're interested in and be entertained.
Do you think that hopping over to faith-based movies, do you think that has been kind of the reason that they have taken so long
exploded.
to,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
now they are now, but maybe in the past,
Well,
because
part of the reason the faith-based movies failed to begin with, and didn't fail, part of the movies, I don't like the word faith-based, okay? Or the two words faith-based. I like faith. I don't like the word faith-based because I believe they preach to the choir. You
Yes,
can only have
yes.
so many movies where all Christians are perfect and all bad guys are, devils. And there's an audience for that. There's an absolute audience for that, but they're that big. It's that much.
right.
And it doesn't do what those kinds of movies should be doing, which is bringing in people who are not, who aren't, faith people,
Yeah.
to watch something to be entertained and then maybe get a message out
And
of
be
it.
moved by that. Yeah.
So I call those movies faith adjacent movies.
Yeah.
I've written two of them. Farm of the Belle is faith adjacent, and I wrote another kind of controversial faith adjacent movie called Church People.
Which, by the way, is stupid.
Do you have a character in that?
No,
okay.
please. But I would like to
Okay.
ask you a question.
Okay.
Where in the world, because Church People is about mega churches.
Yeah.
Okay, so what inspired that?
Which church was it? I'm kidding. Don't say that.
Name names.
No, I'm going to tell you where it came from. It was not my idea. It came from the brain of a very, very funny Christian comedian named Thor Ramsey, who's very famous. He's a very famous Christian comedian. And Thor had this idea for this movie, and it was originally called Youth Group because it was about a youth pastor.
Yeah.
And it morphed. Stephen Baldwin, the wonderful Stephen Baldwin, who's turned out to end up being a good friend of mine, got involved and was producing. And he brought me in to write part of the script. And it became more of what it ended up being, which is a very funny movie about churches who move away from the message and move more toward the theatrics of getting people in.
Yeah.
How can we get
Production.
more? What can we do to get more people in? And we just took it a little further than a lot of movies have ever done. And we got a lot of people who said we were horrible Christians for doing it. but a lot
they
of
watched it.
people who,
But they watched it.
Yeah, they may
Probably
have watched.
twice.
Well, there were a
Yeah.
lot of people that didn't.
The
Yeah.
baseline, or not, the tagline kind of summary of that was that question of when did the gospel become not enough?
Yeah,
That was like, it's like,
Very eye-opening.
wow.
but that's what the movie's about. When did the gospel become not enough, and then when did it? How? Why do we need to do all these big things that? And it's about a pastor who needs to surpass
He's competing
himself.
against himself.
And get more people in, and all the strange people that kind of populate that church,
It's,
and the one sane guy who was the youth minister,
Yeah.
who
That's how that usually works.
it is very, very relatable. It
and
is.
so they cast it funny, and they shot it at a mega church that I can't believe let us use their campus to film it, because it could. But it has a great message. The last 15
really
minutes
does.
of the movie are just cry-worthy,
Yeah.
and we wanted it to be where there is a redemption factor for everybody, except for the worship pastor. A
Right.
redemption factor for everybody, and it ended up being it's the biggest problem with it is it came out right in the middle of the pandemic. But it's caught on, and now more and more people have watched it and
It's a
like
great,
it.
it's
yeah.
a great movie.
And it's
I don't watch a lot of Christmas movies. I have watched yours
thanks, appreciate it.
because my wife made me. But and they're great. They are great. Church People was really my first exposure to your thing, because he's actually playing acoustic guitar.
Oh, yes.
on
Oh,
the,
yes.
on the
I know.
stage for the worship team there. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
hilarious. But it's a great movie and it's fun.
It's funny. I mean,
And
it's
here-
a laugh out
well,
loud
and
funny.
here's the thing that I wonder, Bob, is with everything in the world, is it really? It feels like everything got so politicized that it took the fun out of movies. It's like they're inserting things in the movies that made no sense.
Well,
didn't fit. That you're just
You
like, why are we
listen.
doing this?
You listen to comedians who have been
Yeah.
big time comedians their whole lives, and they say, people are tell them they can't say this and they can't say that, and they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. There's, Jerry Seinfeld famously said, "I'm never going to play a college campus again,
Yeah.
because I don't want people telling me, I can't what I can and can't say."
Right,
And what I
because
can
that's
and
their
can't-
job, is to challenge the norms, right?
Well,
to
comedians,
challenge.
that's a comedian's job, is
Right.
to make, to skewer stuff. That's where most comedy comes from.
Yeah.
Even romantic comedies, you're skewering something. You're skewering romance or how people do things and how people relate. But it's all born out of conflict. The story is nothing without conflict. Okay?
Yeah.
And so you're right. It has become difficult sometimes to put things in
Yeah.
Yeah.
movies and TV. That's ending. That's over. It's going to be over.
Yeah.
And I guess my feeling is, if you're going to be offended by something, don't watch it, because that's what I do. There are things that offend me, and I say to my wife, "Well, I guess we're not going to watch this."
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, speaking of being offended, you were, no, perfect segue. You're a native of California.
I am.
You started there. Talk about the changes since you started of the way things are now.
When I grew up in California?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a different
What was
place.
Hollywood like?
Yeah, what?
Comparing Hollywood to when you first started.
There is
in
no
there.
Hollywood, first of all. Let me get that out. There is no Hollywood. There are a bunch of studios, there's a bunch of production companies, there are a bunch of people that make movies and television in Hollywood. There's a bunch of networks. If you think they all collude together and do stuff, they couldn't even decide where to have lunch. Okay? It's this idea that there are a bunch of of people who sit at the Starbucks on Ventura Boulevard every month and go twist their mustaches and make all these decisions for all of Hollywood
Yeah.
is kind of,
You're right.
it's not the way it works. And so people have this idea that there's this monolith called Hollywood. And it's not a monolith. It's everybody's different. Everybody does things differently. There was an era of time, that last 8 years, where yes, there was kind of a way people did things, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people now who were responsible for that who are out of work.
Right.
And
So-
so it's show business, and it's a business. And when you start losing money and you start losing your customers, then you have to self-reflect.
Yeah.
And they self-reflected in the last 2 years since the strikes. During those great big long strikes, they self-reflected and said, wait a minute, we need to look at our business models and kind of redo them.
And now you kind of explained what the way Netflix is doing things now. What
Well,
they
the way
used to
everybody's
do-
doing things now, they were bringing out way too much product. They were making way too much stuff. Even Hallmark figured out they were making too many new movies. When everything you make now, when you make tons of things that are new, then what's new?
Right.
So companies have cut back their production slates by about 60%. That includes Marvel, and it includes all the studios, it includes all the streamers. They've all said we were making too much new stuff, and we were confusing the audience by giving them too much choice.
Boy, that's
I mean,
the truth. Do you remember the day when, you had primetime television Thursday nights. You knew what you were going to be doing. Now you turn on your Netflix. You spend an hour looking at previews.
Or you just
It's just
scroll
so
through it and you
much,
go,
yeah.
I can't pick anything. I'm
Go to
gonna-
bed.
Yeah.
Get on Facebook. That's what we do now, right? Because you're exactly right.
and
We
they
would be
re-
happier with less.
They realized that audiences, it was too much. So it doesn't help the creative people much because 60% of the people who were working are now gone. I mean, now don't have jobs. I mean, it's affected me for sure, but it's fine. I mean, it's life. You can't.
It's what's
You don't
required for
worry
change.
about things
Right.
you can't control.
Yeah.
I mean, being all upset about big swaths of life that you have zero control over doesn't help you very much.
Do you see it dispersing throughout the country? You hear about Atlanta
It's everywhere.
exploding now.
Oh no, it's
Just-
everywhere. It's everywhere.
But a kind of a mass exodus from the West Coast when these things
Well, no,
happen.
the mass exodus from the West Coast has nothing to do with them contracting. The mass exodus from the West Coast is, so, in my opinion, not a very great place to live anymore.
Yeah.
There's too much crime. There's too much. They don't care about the people who pay the taxes, and they care about the people. They care too much about people that don't pay the taxes. They care about the working people that make something livable are ignored. And you can only put up with that for so long. You can only be taxed out. You know, California, the state income tax is outrageous.
Yeah.
And you look at that and you finally go, there's got to be other places.
Yeah.
And so 4 years ago, we picked up and moved to Tennessee. And we
Tell
did
me
it
about the
without
culture shock
we
of
did,
moving
There
to
wasn't any.
Tennessee.
It was beautiful.
No?
It was like where I grew up. It was like, here's my life as a kid when I was. This is a kind of place I was when I was a kid, and this is much. It was refreshing and wonderful, and we fit immediately in. We felt at home.
Have a lot of your colleagues followed suit and
Yeah,
come
a
this
few
way?
of them have come here, but
Yeah.
some of them gone to Texas, some of them gone to Utah, a bunch of them have gone to Idaho, a bunch of them. There's a producer that I know real well. She called me and said there were a couple of murders about 2 blocks from her house in L.A., and that was it. She was gone, and nobody seemed to care. And so she said, "I'm gone." And I said, "Where'd you go?" She goes, "I just bought a place in Park City, Utah."
Perfect.
I said, "Park City's beautiful."
Yes.
And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "But why Park City?" She goes, "I'm a skier." So I figured, why not?
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that we all think about all the awful things that happened during the pandemic. One of the things that was interesting that happened during the pandemic was it proved that you don't have to be someplace to do something. And all of a sudden, I could have meetings, big, like production meetings with people in Hollywood or wherever else they were on Zoom.
Yeah.
And it was just fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
It changed everything.
I told
It
my
changed everything.
agent that that we were moving, and I said, if it means I don't work again, then that's okay. And I've continually worked, thank you God. I've continually worked since I've been here, and nobody's cared that I live in Nashville. In fact, they all go, "Ooh, Nashville, cool."
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any room left?
Yeah,
Right.
and so it's one of the.
Did you ever think it would be that way, though, that you could leave the West Coast and leave Hollywood and still be such a huge part of it, such a huge part of what's happening, that it could be that remote?
The production companies I'm dealing with now are everywhere. I had a Zoom meeting with a production company in South Carolina the other day, who was talking to me about maybe doing something together. I had another production company that I dealt with that's in Massachusetts, who's making movies. And there are people making movies out of Atlanta. There are people making movies in Oklahoma. There's production companies that hopefully are coming here that are going to be making movies here.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere now. It's not there are producers everywhere now. There's not just.
And the
Decentralized.
opportunities more, do you think? For a young screenwriter coming into the business, are the opportunities more now that it's more dispersed?
No, the opportunities are considerably less because you're buying less stuff.
Right.
And there's more competition with experienced writers, who, in order to break in now, you need to break in with something amazing, a really great script that people just can't live without. And that happens. There's new people that break in all the time. But the time where there was a time when everybody just needed product, where you could write a mediocre script and maybe get it sold, and then they would bring in another writer to rewrite it, but you could get it sold and have a good credit. That's going to happen less and less now because there's so much less being made.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you look at where everything's at, and you were saying there's these young guys that say they're gifted, and they want to be in that business, and people need to have their dreams. They need to pursue that. What's the best advice? Maybe it's not even just a screenwriter, just in the creative industry in general. What would you say?
Networking is the best way to do it. But networking isn't meeting somebody in the industry you want to be in and saying, "What can you do for me? What are you going to do for me?" That makes people look over your shoulder for the exit. Okay? It's the old "give me 3 steps." The best thing you can do is, if you're going to be a screenwriter, you go to film festivals, you go to writers' conferences, you go to places where these production companies are, at conventions and all kinds of things, and you just network with people. You meet people, you get to know people. Networking is about establishing relationships with real human beings who are in the same industry you're in. And then at some point, after you've established that relationship, you can talk about the things you do, and they can talk about the things they do, and they may say, hey, you know what? Pitch me one of your movies. I'd like to hear it. And you do, and they go, I like that.
Right.
I'd like to read it. And you start maybe a relationship, or you don't start a relationship because they come back and say, well, I've read it and it's not for us, and thank you very much, which just happens 99% of the time.
Yeah.
You know, but
You said one time that most of the writing is a writing assignment. In other words,
most of the writing, a screenwriter's 99, almost all of a screenwriter's income comes from assignment writing, where you are adapting a book, or you're rewriting a script for somebody, or you're polishing a script for somebody, or you have some sort of assignment. They hire you to write. If I had to live, like I've said before, if I had to live off of my own original scripts, I'd be working at Home Depot because there's just not enough money in it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Interesting.
But you have to start somewhere, and those original scripts are what get you noticed, and what gets you your first jobs, or what gets you something.
So a young screenwriter comes to you and says, I just can't take the rejection anymore. It's too much.
Do something else. Rejection is the lifeblood of a screenwriter. You have to live with it. I've been doing this almost 30 years. I have 21 produced movies. I would say on a scale of like 1 to 10, I'm 10 successful. I get rejected all the time.
What does it mean to you? I mean, what?
It means I got rejected. So what? It's just another part of what I had. Somebody didn't want. They're not rejecting me.
Was that a learned? Was that a learned?
Yes, it was a way learned thing. But you have to understand, when I'm given a script to read, and this is a good lesson. This is a good lesson. When I'm given a script to read, it's about the words on the page, not the person who wrote it. Okay? When a producer reads a script that somebody has written, and they reject it, they haven't rejected that person as a human being, and most of the time they don't even care about that person as a human being.
Yeah.
They only care about you if you have something that they like.
Yeah.
So when I read a script, when a producer gives me a script to read, if it's horrible, and I say to them, it's really bad, it's not a reflection on the person who wrote it. They shouldn't take it as a personal slight. They should work to improve their writing. But there's a lot of reasons why scripts get rejected. They're not good. They may be good, but they're not what they're looking for at the moment.
Right.
They may be exactly something that the other person is already doing. And that happens a lot. Believe it or not, if you get an idea, there's probably 30 other people who got the same idea.
Right. Yeah. Where do you come up with the idea that's never been done before? Have you ever just said, is there anything left?
Yeah, I've come up with some ideas that have
Yeah.
never been done before, because I've taken them to producers and they go, that's never been done before. I've got two right now I'm working on.
If you can come up with that.
Yep.
That's, yeah.
But those are all divine. Those are all just given to you.
It's
Those
just
aren't.
surviving. In that life, though, it's just learning how to survive the times of when people reject you, and understanding that rejection's not bad.
Rejection is a learning experience.
Right.
Rejection is rejection is about. If you look up the definition of rejection in the dictionary, one of the examples is rejection of a manuscript.
Oh, well, there you go.
Really?
Yes. The Merriam-Webster dictionary, the big dictionary, reject, and then they give examples to reject a manuscript.
Did you laugh the first time you saw that?
I laughed very hard first time I saw it.
Your field is the source of rejection.
It could be.
Started with you.
There is more.
That's the epitome.
It is the hotbed of rejection. Anytime anybody writes anything, anytime anybody writes a song, anytime anybody writes all kinds of things. How many songwriters
Right.
are there out there that are constantly rejected until you find that one person
Yeah, it only takes one.
who goes, ooh, I like
That's
this.
special.
Yeah.
It's a 10-year business from the time you
is,
write your
yes.
first script. I take that back. From the time you write a script, whether it's your 10th script, and that script actually gets made is about a decade.
So
Isn't
that's
that
about
crazy?
average.
Yeah.
This kind of epiphanal thought hit me, and if something happened, there's all promises made, and then those promises fall through. And we've talked about the whole idea of imposter syndrome, when you feel like you don't deserve it.
Welcome to my life.
Well, I said, you know what? Something just hit me one day, and I just said, well, the way to counter that, to never feel that, is to go through the 10 years of the anguish and the disappointment and the
You
rejection.
should never get rid of your imposter syndrome.
Really.
Ever. Ever.
But don't you feel like because of what you did, because of what you experienced in those 12 years that you talked about, don't you feel, though, when you did get that one that was produced, did it not feel,
I worried about where the next one was coming
so
from.
hard for this? No?
I worried about how I was going to be a one-hit wonder.
Okay.
I worried about how that they were going to figure out I wasn't really as good as they thought I was. That's all imposter syndrome. And you know what it does? It keeps you striving to get better. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you grounded in the reality of, wow, I've got to keep.
Interesting.
I have to keep convincing people that I am as good as they maybe think I am. Because if you get to the point where you believe your press, you're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah.
So I embrace my imposter syndrome when I tell other people to do it. And I have a terrible case of it. I keep waiting for people to call me and say, "You've been fooling us
We
the whole time."
figured you out after all these years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think imposter syndrome is great because it keeps you on your toes and it keeps you striving to get better and to improve yourself. When you start believing what people are saying to you about how good you are, then you're not going to get any better.
Right.
Bob, you've had such an eventful life and
I have
career.
a weird, strange life.
And I look at it, you've got, you've had success in that. You've got a wonderful wife.
I do.
Some
I have a
great
fantastic wife.
And I just look at it and see all the friends you have. It looks from the outside looking in, it's like, man, Bob's done it all. He has it all. I'm curious, what
No.
was the most pivotal moment? Maybe two. Most pivotal moments in your life, whether it's in the career or not, that really was life-changing for you, that was just the important things that made you who you are.
Meeting my wife. That's
I
the
get
first
that.
one. Next year we'll be married 50 years.
She's amazing.
Congrats.
She when I changed careers, and you wanted to talk about this too. When I met her, I was in a musical in San Francisco, and it was running about a year. It was about a year-long musical, and I was, believe it or not, I was once a song and dance man. And I met her and we got together and it was great, and I looked at my life and I said, okay, I can spend my life with this beautiful woman, or I can try and be an actor. And trying to be an actor lost, because there's no money in it. There really isn't. I mean, if you're a big star, yes, but this isn't going to be a big star. So I stopped doing it, and I went into the wholesale furniture business, it just worked. And I was very successful until it started to collapse about 20 years later, completely. And we can go into the what happened to that entire business. Just went away. And I warned people in one of the companies I was with that it was coming, and they told me I was a a negative person, that I was a horrible person, and that I should just keep my opinions to myself. And I told Margie, I said, this company's going to be gone in a year. And I was wrong. I admit it. They were gone in 6 months. And I got out, and I said to her, I think I want to be an actor again. And when I picked her up off the floor, she said, you know, give it a shot. Try a couple of years, and God was great. I started off as an extra in movies, and you could see my elbow and knee in some phenomenal films.
Amazing.
And I just went there and I learned as much as I could. I just stood out there and learned and networked a little bit, because extras are supposed to be seen and not heard. And I was on a movie once, George of the Jungle. Mm-hmm. I was an extra in George of the Jungle, and I heard.
Can I look for your elbow? Is there
you can
something
look for
we
my
need to...
elbow. I heard a producer refer to the extras as props that eat.
Ouch.
That's funny.
Ouch.
And well, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And I thought, this is really funny, but I just picked up a lot, and then I got some small little parts, and then I got an acting agent, and I got some other small little parts and different things, and then Nash Bridges was a gift from God, and I ended up there for 6 seasons. I'd be the worst police officer in the entire universe, but was one on screen for 6 years.
Love that.
There's a great scene where me and a couple other guys take down this guy, this actor who was played by the actor was an MMA guy, big guy, and we take him down, and I'm lying on top of him on the ground, and they yell cut. And I looked at him and I said, "You could kill us all right now, right?"
Never
And he
on
goes,
earth
"Oh
would
yeah,
this happen."
oh
Yeah.
yeah, I could.
Yeah.
This would never happen in real
Right.
life. You guys would all be dead."
Yes.
And I said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "I'm lucky it's in the script."
Yeah.
But it was another great experience because I used it as a film school. Mm-hmm. And I guess my whole acting thing was a warm up to get to the point where I was able to get the writing out and do that.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.